For the second article reflection, I'm going to be reflecting on the article 13 Rules That Expire. It has three authors by the name Karp, Bush, and Daughtry, and this reflection is by me, Grace Sanders. And basically, the article just kind of goes in depth over 13 rules that a lot of teachers will feed to their students, but ultimately, this is doing them a disservice as these rules do not always hold true as students progress through grades in school. So now I'm just going to share some of my major takeaways. So my first takeaway says, as teachers, when we only provide students with rules that always work or clear-cut procedures to use to tackle problems, we're not teaching in line with SNPs 2, 6, and 7. This can harm students' abilities to grapple with unknown problems or enter problems from a variety of strategies. So basically, I can relate this to when students are taking standardized tests, because when the creators of these tests are crafting the problems, they're going to want to test students' knowledge to see if they can apply what they learned. They're not just going to say, oh, use this formula and solve this problem every single time. Students are going to have to know how to reason abstractly and make sense of the knowledge that they do have and apply it to unknown situations. And when we're just giving students rules that are always going to work, when we phrase it like this, like, oh, this will always work, we are doing them a disservice, because years down the line when they're taking the ACT test, that rule might not work, but they're going to remember their elementary school teacher sitting on their shoulder telling them that it works all the time when it doesn't. So the quote I found at the bottom, it really just talks about how it's important to emphasize that these rules actually do expire at some point in the student's academic career, and that they're going to need to be prepared for this. So while something might work in the moment, it's not always going to work long term. So I kind of dived in head first with that first takeaway, but my second takeaway says the article provides 13 mathematical rules that are typically taught to elementary school students that will expire as they move up in their learning progressions. And in this particular takeaway, I really wanted to give an example. So the one that really stuck out to me was the longer the number, the greater the number, and addition and multiplication makes numbers bigger, because this is not always true. You could have a decimal value with tons and tons of values in it, or pi, for example, written out. But this does not mean that it's a larger number than 4. Pi is not greater than 4, even though it's a very long number in terms of digits and values. And then again, multiplication, 1/2 times 1/4 is 1/8. So even though you are multiplying something together, does not mean it's getting bigger. And I feel like this is a misconception that students are fed when they're young that can really set them up for failure as they get older. I know these rules took me a long time to get over because they had been fed to me for so long. So in the future, I will be aware of this and not tell my students that these rules are always going to work. They do expire eventually. For my last takeaway, I just want to emphasize that it is not okay to be a lazy educator. We need to use accurate rules and precise vocabulary to help students progress through grades more smoothly. Evolve our teaching strategies to equip students to be able to accomplish SNP goals, and show students strategies but not rules that will always hold true when they do not. And an example I really liked was give students an example of a PEMDAS, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally problem, that does not affect the outcome of the solution if they go about it in a slightly different order than this set acronym that we've all been taught since we entered elementary school, basically. So something that this article has inspired me to do after reading it is that I want to look beyond just the grade level that I'm teaching and better prepare my students for their future. I want to take a look at the math standards, Common Core and state standards that my students are going to be expected to know and accomplish as they move on in grade progressions, and craft my instruction to really help them to be able to reach these standards as they move forward. I really don't want to hold them back just so they can achieve what they're expected to know in my grade level, but I really want to prepare them for what they are going to need in the future so that I can make sure that the information I'm giving them is accurate and will be helpful for them as they move on in their academic careers. That's all for this reflection. Stay tuned for more article reflections by me. I really enjoyed this article, and I'll be sure to save it to my computer to reference well beyond this course. And I'm always glad to be deepening my knowledge when it comes to mathematics. Bye!